Welcome to the channel. My name's Bryce. I share what helped me move from a bottom 40% rep up to a top 5% in about 6 months. I had been on performance plans, coaching plans for well over a year, and I had proven I was successful and a solid rep over 7 years previous in my career. But it wasn't until I started looking into this side of stuff that I now teach when things finally started to change for me. In this video, what I want to talk about today is a real big realization that I had of the 3 levels of success in sales, and particularly transitioning from level 2 to level 3, which few people do. And those are the top performing reps that we all want to be, and you won't have to grind yourself into the dust in order to make the kind of money you want to make. So I hope you'll stick around. I hope that some of this stuff helps you. But with that said, we'll just get into it. Before I get into kind of what the levels are, I want to explain how they work. So level 1, kind of think of it like a video game, right? Level 1, there are not very many prospects in level 1. With a basic understanding of sales, you can close a level 1 deal. But what's interesting about level 2, and this is what most people would consider mastery of sales. Like when you get to here, this is where most people would say, okay, yeah, he's arrived. What's different about level 2 though is the leads that you have access to. It's kind of like a Christmas tree shape, right? The deeper you go into level 2, the more leads that you have the skills now to close. And then level 3, and this is what we're going to focus on today, is that's limitless. Getting started with level 1. Level 1 is what I call body. This is the stuff that you could close a deal by fogging a mirror and saying the basic structure of a script, and you'll close level 1 deals, right? Level 2, this is mind, okay? So now this is where you start to get experience, right? Dealing with the same objection for years and hundreds and hundreds of times. Developing talk tracks. This is learning how to manipulate tone, how to work with pauses, the types of questions that you can use, all of those different things. I mean, this is why I say 95% of sales trainings are on level 2. Level 3, and for me, this is what made the change. Like I said, I had been listening to phone calls for months. I had been listening to the top performers. I had been reworking pitches. I mean, I was doing everything that I had done in the past for the previous 7 years to be a top 10% guy. I was doing all of that and then some. And maybe you felt like this before. I was working to 100% and I was getting about to get fired is where I was ending up. I had no more effort to give. I felt like I was learning. I knew what I needed to know in order to perform well. I had the skills. I knew the what, but I didn't have any more to give. So when you're in that position, what do? This is where you start to go about your job for you. This is where you drop all pretense of trying to satisfy the boss and trying to look productive for the sake of appearance, and you start focusing on what moves the needle. And you might say, oh, well, this is just experience. That comes from heart. This is conviction. This is a level of give a shit about what you do, how you go about your job. The first thing that makes level 3 the most unique is that unlike any other level, there is absolutely nothing that you have to learn in order to get here. The reason, and that's what's funny, is that's what makes it so hard to tap into this 3rd level, is because when you start to get to the bottom end and you start to make that transition towards level 3 in sales, this is where most guys get stuck, is because their mind starts entering in your own limiting beliefs. This is where you start to get that whole reticular activating system, limbic system, that starts seeing a certain level of potential or outcomes that you're not used to, and your cruise control of your life will kind of bring you back down to earth, so to speak. And we all have experiences with this. I'm sure you have said something on a sales call that you knew better. You knew not to say it. You knew there was a better way to say it. You've trained 100 times to say it differently. and for whatever reason you said something that just blew everything up. There are labels on this transition that keep you in this box of self-sabotage, of you don't know enough, you got to grind more, you got to learn some more. And there's always a little bit more that you can learn that you feel will then help you get more out of what you're doing. And it's not the case. At a certain point, and I say this all the time, developing more skill can only counter unproductive beliefs for so long. The biggest transition that changed for me was realizing that we might sell the solution, but what we're really selling is the feeling of safety. And as humans, that is our core, that is the first fundamental thing. If we don't feel safe, it doesn't matter what the offer or the benefit is, we're not going with it. And when you realize that there is such a significant part of your pitch, of your job, that is simply a human core biological level of does this other animal feel safe? When you realize that that's what's actually going on in sales, you'll start to tap way more into this and you will close way more deals. So the obvious question is, all right, well, Bryce, how do I transition from level 2 to level 3? Some guys, you know what, they're just lucky, they do it unconsciously. If you're watching this video, it's because you have felt and seen patterns that you feel like there's more to give, there is more that you're capable of, but for some reason it's not coming. The way to transition from here to here is rewrite your limiting beliefs. That's the fundamental way to do it. In the process of rewriting your limiting beliefs, there is a lot of work that goes into that. Number one, you have to identify your patterns, okay? This is the biggest one that is the key to everything else. You have to be able to say, okay, when I start to perform really well, what happens then? Do I have like a natural ebb and flow to my performance, or am I lead the team, drop to last place, lead the team, drop to last place? Is there a slight increase, I kind of taper off, and then I plummet? What are your patterns, okay? Also looking at what do you feel when you do well? What do you feel when you do poorly? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of happening if you do super well for a long time? Believe it or not, I had a lot of beliefs around making extra money, right? And this is what I talk about when there is so much more to sales and success than just say this thing and you'll get this much money. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. I've seen it happen time and time again. A little story about why I even discovered this stuff. So I went to an expo, kind of a trade show or whatever, and there was we brought 6 of our best guys, top guys. We all knew what we were doing. We kind of had these little computers set up adjacent to each other on different sides of the table. And I was sitting across from one of the guys that was well known to be just an absolute killer. So the first day, I found myself kind of trying to copy how he did things. And I was just like, it was a nightmare. I've never been more frustrated in my entire life than that first day of that convention. So that night I went back and I started doing some of this stuff. I walked in that next day to that convention center, and of the other 5 reps, I outsold all of them combined. I was no more skilled one day to the next. All it was I had spent my evening tapping in to this level, and I decided that I was going to do things differently and I was going to do it my way. And that's why I talk about when you tap into level 3, that's what you start to get out of this process. It opens up a far wider range of people that you can then close. I don't know what it is, but I mean, there's like electromagnetic fields and all, like the science of this stuff is legit. There is science behind everything I'm talking about. You can call it woo-woo, you can whatever. It freaking works though. Too many times for me to call it a coincidence, which is why I've started training on this stuff. Anyway, I wanted to give you a couple other tips and pointers. So identify your patterns. Number 2 is you have to then orient and decide where you're going to go despite those new patterns, okay? And then stick to the process rather than the outcome that your mind is telling you, because if you start to focus too much on the outcome, There's uncomfortable stuff that looks like it's not going to work and you're going in the wrong direction when you're trying to make changes, okay? And then the last one is, we'll go here, is I call it topography. And that's where you start to rewrite your own map. That's where you start to say, okay, based on what I know, based on where I'm looking, this is where I'm gonna go, this is how I'm gonna do it. This has changed my life, made me a lot more money in the process. And like I said, when you feel like you are stuck and you have no more to give, put more of you in. I hope that resonates. Like, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you on the next one.